Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Decentralized Tech live stream where we cover all forms of decentralized tech. But today it's going to be all things DePIN because I have a really special guest today. I've got Daniel from Hotspotty slash DePIN Hub. I love the background effect. Now I'm super jealous. I got to fix that for myself. We're going there, Oscar. We gotta get this figured out for next time. Love it. I'm Jon Radoff. I am one of the founders and the CEO of a company called Beamable. We are launching a DePIN project. We have a 5-year-old tech stack that has about 100 live games on it with a couple million users a month. We've got an active community of about 1.2 million people that are on the Beamable network community in one form or another every month. So super active live games. We're taking all of that and building a DePIN around it for the back end of games. So that's what I do. DePIN, certainly the thing that I'm most focused on. We're going to talk about all kinds of DePIN projects today. We're going to talk about what's exciting in DePIN. In fact, this is probably going to be the single best episode I've done so far for any of you that are new to DePIN, trying to learn about it, or wondering, even if you know about DePIN, why now for DePIN? So we're going to cover all of that. But I'd love you, Daniel, to introduce yourself. Maybe there's one or two people here that haven't met you yet. But those who don't know, Daniel is a legend in DePIN already. He is connected to so many projects. And I think we'll talk about DePIN Hub in a moment. But let's just start with you, Daniel.
How did you? Thanks so much. Yeah. Thanks so much for the invitation for this. I'm like goosebumps. I get excited about talking about DePIN. But yeah, I've been, let's say, I'm a hardware engineer. I've been into hardware making movement, crypto since around 2011. And it was around 2020 that I started playing with this project called Helium. And me and my co-founder, Max, we started playing. And actually, I was the first deployer of Helium outside of the US because I built my own Helium hotspot. I found this project that I've been playing with IoT networks in the past when I was living in Berlin. I live in Lisbon right now. And I saw this project that was trying to build this decentralized wireless network, IoT network using blockchain, and then having the reward system to actually incentivize people to deploy these networks. And immediately I was like, like light bulb moment. And okay, I go, let's build this thing. I started spending all my days on Discord trying to learn. The community actually was quite small. I think there was, not even 1,000 people on the Helium Discord. It was actually super cool, super close community. Everybody was building like crazy. Then me and Max, my co-founder, started, buying some devices. We started deploying. We spent basically, 6 months just climbing roofs, pulling cables, installing antennas everywhere. And it was interesting because around was COVID times as well. So technically, we're not even allowed to leave the house, and we're just like duffel bags full of equipment, just taking a taxi, trying to escape the police, and then just getting into people's homes, climbing roofs, installing. It was an amazing time. Actually, let me see here. I have so many devices. This is one of like the Helium hotspots that we built, right? It's just like a Raspberry Pi with like a LoRa concentrator. Somewhere around here I have the first one that I built as well. That's actually the first one that was in outside of the US. It was in my kitchen in Lisbon. And from there Helium grew to 1 million devices all around the world. It was such a cool time, cool history. I think it was like the fastest network ever deployed in history. Like 1 million devices all around the world in 2 years. And with that, we start having our own problem that, okay, we start deploying people's homes. The way it usually works when you have like this local based DePIN is that we put the device in someone's home, like your mom, your friend, my mom, and then I give them a percentage of the rewards. And in the beginning it was fine because we had like 10 devices. I could do the calculations in a spreadsheet. And then once we started like have like 50, 100 devices, start getting a little bit complicated. So I decided to build on the weekend, just like a little ERP system, just like a platform that could manage all those devices. And that actually, one second.
We've got decentralized physical alarms. I don't know if it's a smoke alarm.
Yeah, it's an air quality sensor. Like I have a 3D printing. I have a 3D printer going on here, so it started like beeping, telling like you should get out of this
not
office.
a decentralized air quality sensor, which I believe is a thing. There are people doing that.
It is. I mean, I have just in my office here. I have two. There's WeatherXM, there's Kayaks, there's like so many other projects that like if you go to my office here, I mean, you can't really see, but I have a lot of DePINs everywhere because I'm always trying new projects, trying to understand the project. But just to like finish the story there, right? So with this kind of like system to build a way to manage those devices, the fleet of devices, we decided, okay, there's an opportunity here. Let's launch this as a product, as a software as a service. And with that, Helium grew. We grew with Helium. We actually help Helium, become what it is today. Because like 300,000 users that were deploying Helium hotspots were using Hotspotty every day to manage those devices. We managed to, from 1 million devices deployed, 400,000, 40% of those devices that were being managed on Hotspotty. And that was kind of like the beginning of this idea of a decentralized infrastructure. Before there was, we used to call DY, decentralized wireless. Then there was POPW, like proof of physical work, DePIN, token incentivized physical infrastructure. And then the final name that kind of took off was DePIN, which we use right now. But at the end of the day, it's just a name, right? Like it's just we are like getting together with all the builders, deployers, engineers, and trying to, okay, this thing, we always like, okay, this thing that we're building, what it is. And then in the end, we decide, okay, DePIN is a name. I don't know if it's the best name or not. It's a name that everybody understands. When you talk about DePIN, you know what you're talking about. So let's just go with DePIN. And that's what it stayed for the last couple of years. Man, I love to build. I'm a hardware engineer. Like I said before, software, backend, front end, anything that has beats and bytes and electrons going through. I like to put my hands on it. And I think that DePIN is what I'm most passionate about because combine, blockchain, combine hardware, combine software, combine everything that a nerd really likes like me. So yeah, I'm here. And then as the space started growing, basically, I started getting to know the projects. Demo came up. Demo is this project that has the car sensors, right? And then I get to know the founders, try to understand what they're doing to see how I could help them. And then there's HiveMapper, and then so on to the point that we have, hundreds and hundreds of projects right now. And yeah, it's just, I feel that we're just getting started basically. But with that, 2 years ago, we decided, okay, it's really hard for you to know where's a good project, what's a bad project, where can I know new projects that I can, make some passive income with the infrastructure that I have at home. Like if I have a car, you can have HiveMapper and Demo. If you have, house with the rooftop, I can have a GeoNet, Onokoi, Helium, you name it, etc. So with that, we build DePIN Hub. So DePIN Hub, think about CoinMarketCap plus DeFi Llama, or DeFi Llama, not DeFi Llama, for DePIN. And that's what DePIN Hub is right now. And that's why we try to focus. Our goal is to bring opportunities to the people around the world to learn about decentralized infrastructure, and then can make some passive income from that, can help build and actually fight against the evil corps, like these massive companies like AWS, Google Cloud, etc. And that's something that is very interesting that Beamable is doing. And I'll stop here, otherwise I'm going to be talking for the rest of the hour.
Now, I think DePIN Hub is pretty much the highest ranked SEO ranked website about this topic.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time actually building the website, and actually, just like kind of like, okay, what are the things that we think people would like, things that we actually like to show, because it's think about a place that you go, there's everything that you need around DePIN, project information. We have some like courses about multiple DePIN events. We have there's like everything that you need is in there. There's a lot of things that we're building as well. But yeah, basically, if you go Google DePIN some project, we're gonna be the top 3 every time. But yeah, it's hard work pays sometimes.
So I'm gonna state my own thesis, but I'm actually gonna state my conclusion before the thesis, and then I'm gonna invite you to participate. Okay, so my conclusion is that DePIN is the most important category in crypto, particularly right now and probably for the next few years. I'll share my reasons for that, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about whether, first of all, if you even agree with that statement, and if not, why not, or if you do, then why. While you're thinking about your answer, though, I want to make sure that our audience realizes this is not going to just be about me asking questions today. We do this live, which means you, the community, actually get to participate in this. And I see there's already over 500 of you tuning in live, watching this. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're all over the place. So whichever channel that you're on, post your question and we will give that to both of us. I think this is sort of a stream where I'm taking the perspective of Beamable, of course, but looking at the broader DePIN market. Hotspotty, Daniel, he's going to be talking about it broadly. So if you have any questions about DePIN, how it fits into crypto, what the opportunity is, what the heck we mean by supply side versus the demand side, like all of those things are going to be covered today. So you get the chance to play my job and ask questions and get them up on the screen. So please do that. All right. Daniel, my question, DePIN, is it the most important thing in crypto?
I would say for what we're working on, yes. I think there are two things that I'm really passionate about in crypto. I mean, DePIN by far is the thing that I like the most because I think it's one of the things that can really change not just like how people see infrastructure, but I like to think that can also change people's lives, right? Like if you are deploying infrastructure, depending where you are in the world, sometimes if you deploy one or two projects, that can really make a difference. Like there are places around the world that, you know, $50, $100 a month extra can really make a difference, can, you know, make you step out of whatever situation that you're on and then go to the next step. I think that's something that is super interesting on the DePIN side. And of course, being an engineer and loving decentralized anything, you know, like I did a lot of torrenting for just, of course, downloading Linux distros in the past, and really like the way that people, like, you know, share this infrastructure. Then, of course, journeying with crypto, I do think that DePIN is exciting AF. Another thing that excites me about on crypto right now, it's a bit like more like a boomer topic. It's a bit of like regarding stable coins, because it's actually being talked a lot, right? It's outside of the DePIN aspect, but it's something that can also really accelerate a lot of development all around the world in terms of like payments. But I would stay on the DePIN side. Is something that makes me wake up every day, every morning, like, let's build this world. Let's try to figure out something that we can do to change it, right? And I think crypto doesn't need more meme coins, which is like, you know, just a money grab where people lose money, and some people, like some small percentage, make money from that.
Some people lose. I think most everyone loses money, but yeah.
Yeah, like 99%, 99.9% of people lose money. I mean, one thing that I like about DePIN that's quite important is that it's the Web3 aspect of DePIN it's a small part of it, right? It's like projects trying to build real businesses where they have the incentivization layer to actually bootstrap the network. And it's different than most projects in crypto that you see that. Crypto, 99% is like money moving money. You need to have money to make money, unless you try to gamble, which you're probably going to lose money. So it's excited to see projects like Beamable, like other DePIN projects that are trying to, you know, utilize the idea of decentralization to actually enable a new way of looking at a business, and this is super exciting to me.
Yeah, so I'll share my thoughts. Agree with everything you just said, especially the point about DePIN is a set of actual businesses is a way to look at it. They're solving some kind of problem. Just on my stream alone, and you have, I think, 20x number of founders that you've talked to on yours. So definitely, if you want to do the deep dive into DePIN, you should just go check out the podcast that Daniel does over on, I think you can find it right on DePIN Hub. But like I've interviewed a bunch of them right on this. We've talked to people doing decentralized drones. We had, speaking of Helium, we had Amir, CEO of Helium. He was here last week. We've had people doing decentralized GPS. So there's so many different really interesting applications. It harnesses sort of a unique aspect of the wide distribution of crypto to geographically distribute all of these nodes all over the world in an interesting way that is a little bit different than the way large companies often think about how to do the geographic focus of their business. So it allows, for example, people to get really good coverage with the decentralized drone tech, or the decentralized GPS tech is another one. Or in the case of Beamable, the idea of having a low latency network around the world so that game servers have very fast communication with game clients. So that's a good example of where I think on the distributed basis, like everywhere there is a crypto user, you potentially have a DePIN node existing in that geography. But the interesting thing that extends beyond that, though, is while I believe that the supply side of this, we'll talk about demand versus supply side in a moment, the supply side, at least today, tends to be more crypto native because they're earning tokens as their primary reward. So they tend to be people who know what a crypto wallet is, for example. The demand side is not like that. In DePIN, you're really selling a service to a set of customers. So in our case, Beamable, the natural assumption is, well, it's Web3 tech, so it's for Web3 games. Actually, that's not the case. Most of our traffic on Beamable is quote unquote Web 2 games, which, by the way, not exactly zero of these games consider themselves quote unquote Web 2. They're like, we're just games doing gaming as it's always been. But in their case, they're just downloading an SDK. It works with the tools they already use. It's like Unity or Unreal Engine or HTML5 JavaScript game. All of those are options, and you just build your game the way you're used to. You don't set up a wallet to start using it. In fact, you don't even know about crypto. Like, unless you're one of the rare people who wants to interact with the protocol itself, provision servers right off the protocol, have at it. We love you if you do that, but we don't think that's the normal way to do things. You'd be a little bit more like Daniel here when he was building his own custom hotspot with the Helium protocol, probably back in the day. But I think the fact that, most crypto applications are crypto working with crypto. So like DeFi is literally that. DeFi is all these financial applications that are just crypto building on top of crypto. Solves lots of useful problems, and it's great. I love DeFi, but it isn't really the thing that grows the market right now, as opposed to DePIN is actually delivering a set of services or businesses to people who already need those things. DePIN does it better, more economically, more geographically distributed, more alignment between all the stakeholders in the network, like all of that. But ultimately, you're just selling something that people already need. Crypto is also very good at inventing things that are like solution in search of the problem. DePIN is very opposite that. It's solving an existing problem. And I think that's how crypto grows. That's why I think when I say it's the most important category in crypto, it's because of that. We're onboarding all of these non-crypto users who probably aren't even going to know that they're using crypto underneath as a like a transaction layer or a incentive layer for the network. They're just getting what they want. What are your thoughts on that, Daniel?
No, that's absolutely what I think. Then a lot of projects that, like you're mentioning, crypto, like DeFi projects, only are surrounded by other crypto people. DePIN is I think, I like to say, the narrative that's going to onboard a lot of other people into Web3 as well. I like to say this is the gateway drug to Web3. But also people who are going to be using those networks on the demand side, like you're saying, they don't even need to know that's Web3. And I think they don't need to care. That's the bit of that. Because, I would say the same way that right now a lot of people talk about blockchain, okay, Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, etc. When you go to a website, you don't care if it's hosted on AWS or Google Cloud. You just want to see the website. I think the same thing is going to be with a crypto project, and especially if you're going to be on the demand side, a lot of projects that are doing very well. One of them that's very easy to see the difference is StorageJ. StorageJ is like a decentralized storage project that they have a very big differentiation between the demand side and the supply side. The demand side, they don't even mention crypto because at the end of the day, you don't care. You just want a product that works. It works well. It's cheap. It's fast. And as a customer, that's what I need. I don't want to know about wallets. What's a wallet? What's a seed phrase? Is it a seed phrase, a password? I don't know. I don't care, basically, right? Of course, on the supply side, usually it's more Web3 focused. But I think that's very important for those projects to grow. And the demand side is what is difficult. And if you start talking about Web3, a lot of companies are going to get scared as well because there's like so many like bad names and hacks and things like that if I'm trusting my company information with a project, sometimes if you're like, okay, it's a Web3, we need a wallet, you need a MetaMask to use that data, that's already going to put a lot of people off. So I think companies that are focusing the demand side on completely known crypto angle, I think that's the way to go for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've just been talking around demand side, supply side. So just so it's super clear for everybody tuning in, if you're just learning about DePIN, the demand side are the customers is the easiest way to think of it. And we probably should have just called them customers and suppliers or something. But we have this real unique skill in crypto to just make things sound harder and more complicated than they need to be. But and therefore they're the demand side. They're the ones that are actually using the service, and whether or not they know that there's a token involved by using it, usually there's a token involved somewhere, even if they don't see it, and they are kind of creating buy pressure on that token, and that's why they're thought of as demand side in this. So for example, for Beamable, the customer is a game studio. It's someone building a game who needs backend servers to scale their game. On Helium, the demand side is a person who needs to connect to Wi-Fi and use it, right? They're literally just the user, the end user who needs Wi-Fi connectivity. The supply side is the people who supply that. So for example, on the Beamable network, you have to be a compute provider who has access to servers in pretty high tier data centers. So that could be anyone who owns a data center with servers in it who can offer the kind of compute capacity that AAA games need, because they can not go down. You go down in the gaming business, you're out of business. So you're not making any money at all during that time. So they're the suppliers. Again, in the Helium example, it is the people who actually own a Wi-Fi hotspot, and people connect to that, but you are providing the actual hardware. So that's the supply and the demand side. So the question here, Daniel, is you have looked at a ton of projects through DePIN Hub. You interview a lot of people. What are some of the common themes? And feel free to go beyond demand side, supply side. There can be lots of other factors that go in here, but what is important that you have observed for the DePIN projects that have actually started to succeed? And I say started to succeed only because we know we're super early. Even Helium, which grew so fast, as you put out there earlier, like Helium's percentage of the worldwide telecom market is still micro, right? So we're all small, including the ones who have gotten quote unquote big relative to each other right now. So we'll talk with that understanding, but with the information we have today, what do you think these patterns are that you're observing in the most successful DePIN projects?
Yeah, I think there are a few ways to look at successful projects. One is how much they have fundraised. Sometimes that's not necessarily the best metric. Like projects like Grass had a lot of hype around it, etc. But I see for me personally, the projects that I've been talking to, that's a lot of projects, and when I see the project is going into the right direction, and then I get very confident about the founders, is when they spend most of their efforts in in the customer base, like on the demand side and the customer, because actually that's what's going to make the project sustainable. A lot of projects, when they go around token generation event, TG, when they're going to launch the token, there's a lot of hype they're going to need to do, because in a way, crypto it's a bit sad, I think, the way that things are, because it's all hype based. Sometimes you need to get X amount of people on your Discord or on your Telegram or on your X, and then you need to do this and that for just so it can be listed on some exchanges. But at the end of the day, this project is going to have a token that's going to be sustainable by the revenue that's being generated by their company, right? I really like projects that like I said, really focus on the demand side, because if there is no money coming from outside of this project as a customer, there's no way that this project is going to be sustainable, unless it's just people buying and selling the tokens, and then the token is going to go up and down. Then it's going to be speculation. It's not going to be a sustainable long-term project. And one thing that a lot of DePIN projects, at least the serious ones, are trying to do is build a business that's sustainable, that's revenue, and is profitable. So projects, when I see them that spend a lot of time looking for customers, growing that customer base, it's a very, very interesting metric for me. Another thing that I see is that projects that I like projects that do like burn, like buybacks. That's not necessarily the only way that this should work, but it's been working very well with a project called GeoNet. For example, this have this like GPS location. Mike's like extremely smart guy. He knows a lot about the solution, like the GPS world, the Arctic world, and they've been growing, the revenue. So basically, they have the network that has people, climbing roofs and installing their antennas. And as the network grows, they're actually focusing a lot of effort on getting more customers. These customers pay them in dollars. When they receive their money in the bank, they take a big chunk of that money, go to the public market, and buy those tokens back and burn, right? Mm-hmm. So there's like a healthy mechanism to keep the price of the token up, and that's not with the speculation. So I think that's something that I see when I talk to projects, that okay, like going back to see like a lot of focus on the demand side and burn mechanism, and being very transparent as well, right? I think what Jon here is doing with Beamable is really nice to see, like going to conferences, showing your face, show that you guys are trying to build a real business, and already talk about the supply, like the demand side, how it's working, and also putting a lot of strains on the supply side as well, because if it's too easy to deploy something, a lot of times the quality of the data, or the value that unique person is giving, it's also low. So that's what happens with projects that you just install an app on your phone and just click a button. It's too easy. Everywhere around the world is going to be doing. So basically the value of that action is quite low. But if you're deploying something, for example, you need to have a data center. You need to have a very, very good location with like line of sight of the whole city. It's not for everyone. People need to, do the work. It's proof of work, basically, right? In a way. So basically, you need to those are the things that are going to add value, because the price of the token is going to be how much value this project is actually bringing to the world. It's the token price speculation is temporary, but if you want to try to have something sustainable on the long run, those things are very, very important and required. And one thing that I really like about Beamable, for example, is that there's a lot of spare resource in the world, right? Like, for example, I go and build like a data center. I start selling these things. I could have, a big chunk of the data available only for Beamable. And then maybe if other customers start coming, I can reduce the Beamable, but making sure that I'm using 100% of the supply that I have. Otherwise, I'm just going to be losing money. So, utilizing idle resources is something really interesting. Like Hive Mapper. I remember there were stories of this guy's a plumber. He put a Hive Mapper in his car, and he was driving every day, to fix toilets and things like that. At one point, the Hive Mapper token went up. He was making more money just by driving, doing his job, than actually, So it's those are things that's super exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good for that guy though, in being able to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Beamable has spent the last 5 years just building customer base. And I think that's kind of what's unique about our DePIN launch is we have the 100 live games. We've got way more than that in development that's going to join the network. We've got 8,000 individual developers that signed up for the platform. And you're right, like we did that partly just the street fight, going out, finding each developer, trying to talk to as many as we could. A lot of conference participation, a lot of not Web3 conferences, by the way. Like when we go to GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference, or Gamescom, you could find a Web3 like they're there if you search hard enough, but you have to know kind of where to go. It's usually at some bar on the outskirts of the city in a side event. Congregated because they're not exactly fully welcome in the rest of the conference. So their only protection from that is being in one place where they've got each other's back at that time. But we go to Game Developer Conference, we go to Gamescom, we go to Games Beat Summit, places like that where the game developers are, who don't think of themselves as Web 2 or Web 3 or Web 4 or web with any number after it. They think of themselves just as game developers trying to figure out how to build their game and get to market fast. And our story to them is about fast time to market. We're going to save you many months of development if you tried to do this themselves. We are going to be much more economic because we've got this global network and they're on bare metal service providers, often doing exactly what you said, where they've already got the data center and they're trying to monetize this underutilized capacity. So it's not like we have to go and convince everybody to build new data centers to support Beamable. Data centers exist. There's zillions of these things all over the world right now. And we can go to them and say, hey, you've got these servers just sitting there. You should do something with them because they're just sitting there doing nothing for you. You're have a wasting asset for every one of those that isn't used. So let's monetize it. So we have that ability to keep the costs low, which is what the game studio cares about. And we're building an ecosystem. So instead of it being one centralized provider like an Azure or a AWS or a GCP, all of which, by the way, more than welcome to be on the supply side of the network. It's not like we hate those guys. We love those guys. They've got lots of capacity, just tends to be a lot more expensive. Therefore, capacity will go to bare metal service providers who are more price competitive out of the gate. So better pricing, better, less centralized risk to those big guys because they can change their business model, their pricing, anything, versus a marketplace-driven economy where you get access to suppliers that really want to monetize an underutilized asset, and an open ecosystem. So once you're also not on one particular provider, it's kind of like what you were showing earlier. You were able to build your own Wi-Fi node for Helium because it's an open network, right? So that's different too. Like, we want to encourage software developers to create code modules and build on top of the network and make new software available. So when we're talking to game developers, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything about tokens. Nothing I said is about a token and why you should have the token to be in Beamable. It's all about the solution, that demand side. And when I spoke to Amir from Helium last week, it was kind of the same thing. And he pointed out that like it is these sort of traditional businessy things that are a little bit boring from a crypto standpoint that are actually what's important for DePIN. It's like, okay, what's my conversion funnel look like? What do I got to do on customer acquisition? What's my cost per customer? Like all these sort of number driven things that are kind of in the SaaS business or pretty much every business that exists. No one wants to think about that anywhere in crypto, I'd say, except maybe DePIN, just because you're building real businesses and that's interesting. So yeah, we've done that.
Also, the permissionless aspect is interesting.
Yeah, good. Keep going with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that like a lot of times, depending on what you need to do, it's like you need to always ask for permission to participate in this network. If I want to deploy some things, I need to, go through like some sort of process. And also what usually DePINs allow is like, okay, the network's built in a way it's resilient and is built for anyone that has the right, hardware, the right equipment or right mentality to join and add value without having to ask for permission. So it's like permissionless networks. And I like to think also we're working with the share economy 2.0. What started with like Uber, Airbnb, and now it's DePIN. It's the next frontier of like decentralized everything.
I love that comparison. It's worth spending a little bit more time on. I often compare what we're doing at Beamable to like Airbnb or Uber, in the sense that you've got some compute capacity, and rather than leasing it to a specific customer, you can now lease it to a network, and the capacity will get used when it's needed. Kind of like driving the car, and someone who needs a ride, you are getting paid for just that piece of time. Not every DePIN network works exactly that way, but that's how we do it. But the big difference versus Airbnb and Uber is what, Daniel? You don't have an Uber or a Airbnb saying, okay, and here's our service. We're going to take a cut along the way, and we're going to be the central provider that does everything. DePIN is typically pretty different in that respect too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's nice because it's the networks. It's built on the code side. The code that dictates the rules, right? I think that's quite interesting. Like with Helium, for example, back in the time, as long as you have the hardware, you have the right equipment, and if you deploy the device in the wrong way, put in the basement, for example, it's not going to make any rewards because it's not giving any, not providing any service, right? I just found here, just out of curiosity, this is the first Helium hotspot that was ever deployed outside of the US. There was around 4,000 devices in the US when it started. The little board that actually that I built. So the board itself, the LoRa concentrator, it was from a good friend of mine. We worked for a company called Balena at the time, and he sent me just like a LoRa concentrator. And I was lucky enough that I already had the hardware to build the Helium hotspot. And then it's like, okay, how can I actually get the things that I already have and build the code and then start supplying IoT network for Portugal, for Lisbon. So yeah, it's a little piece of history for me, at least. I really value, because that's why I'm here 5 years later, right? Still talking about this thing.
So you've made some good bets, we'll use that word, in terms of which projects to support. Helium certainly being one of them. Sandman made a comment earlier that this year, and I'd say definitely last year too, we've seen a lot of things selling nodes, and I have my own thoughts on this. But his point here is, you don't know which project to trust. It's just the new wave. I get it. Feels like NFT collections all over again. Which one do you know even means something? He mentions he spent a couple thousand on nodes. What do you think, Daniel? Like, if you think of this through the lens of you want to get involved in a project, not just token speculation, but you really want to be part of the supply side, meaning you're going to operate nodes, you're providing some service back to the community. How do people, and again, we don't offer financial advice on this, so this is just sort of friendly advice that you might want to think about, but like, how should folks out there in the audience think about which projects they want to back from a node standpoint? Like, what should they be trying to learn early on before they even pull the trigger, buy a node, install a piece of hardware, whatever it is for the project?
Yeah, I mean, I think buying a node license is very similar to buying like a hardware piece, like, like a device itself. There's a lot of things that you need to think twice, because what happened in the past, like say year and a half, is that the node sale became like also a fundraising mechanism for those projects, which is not a bad thing. But it's the same way that you're going to be buying a node, you also are buying a token, actually different than buying a node, like say an NFT, because you cannot, once you buy the node, you cannot sell it that easily. And I think projects that promise things that are too good to be true, that doesn't mean it's not going to be true, but do much more due diligence that you need to do on those projects than you do on any other project, because once you buy that license, maybe not as easy for you to get rid of, and you need to make sure to get your return on your investment, right? So make sure to really understand the project, understand what the project is trying to do, understand the founders. See, are the founders like visible, or are they like, just a bunch of NFT characters that you only know their voices? I think it's
My
too
avatar is
easy.
an character, but everybody knows who I am at this point. I
Yeah, I
hope.
mean, you're very easy to see your face everywhere. I
Easy to
think
track down.
there's a lot of projects out there. They have you should do like a proper due diligence in those projects, see how real they are, see if the founders are trying to build something valuable, because there's a lot of noise, right? And another thing that I would say that is very crypto related: don't be greedy, otherwise you may just lose whatever you invested, the same way that you bought meme coins and went to zero. um, and also understand the project, understand the infrastructure they're trying to build, because a lot of times you buy this node license and you actually need to run those. There's some infrastructure that you can rent for running, but maybe you're going to have to actually have a little computer running in your house, or graphic cards, etc. Understand what you're trying to do before purchasing. And like I said, don't be greedy. Don't fall for like a lot of marketing tactics. Understand the project, get excited about the project, because if you're excited about that project, it's going to be like me. I was spending so much time, not just like on the hype side, but actually trying to understand, the problem, the solution. And that made me much, much more confident of investing in a project than just like my friends saying like, oh, look at this. This is interesting. Let's go to the moon. Yeah, so let's throw some money in it. And then I have no idea what happened. So every time that I lost money, it's probably because someone told me that it's a cool project. I didn't have time to look at it. I bought something, I forgot about it. And then when I looked, the project was gone already. So spending time understanding.
Node is also one of these words that's starting to get abused within crypto as well. And that in DePIN, a node means either a piece of software to be deployed on a server or an actual piece of hardware. I mean, it's all hardware at some level. It's just whether the software is packaged with the hardware and you're buying a unit that does that versus just having essentially a virtual hardware instance where the software is deployed on sort of off-the-shelf compute tech. But there's also a lot of things being sold called nodes. And I see this in gaming, by the way. Like, fortunately, some of the worst offenders of this are right in the market that are our customers, which is game companies building Web3 games, selling a node as a fundraising mechanism, because NFT collections don't really sell anymore. Not too many people want to do a ICO for a game either. So what's the new thing? Well, selling a node. And usually what it means is it's an NFT that if you have it, it just gives you a token drip of some kind. And there's no software. Like, you don't really need anything. It doesn't deploy anywhere. It doesn't provide a service. But they call it nodes because it's sort of like the name that gives it some legitimacy. So the thing I would point out is just learn what you are actually doing. Like, what is the node going to do? In Beamable, we have 3 types, but kind of 2, at least in the near term, that are most important. One is a worker node, and you have to have like real, data center grade capacity to operate a worker node. Those are, it's because AAA games rely on security, reliability, 99.9% SLAs, like a lot of bandwidth access. There's also what we call checker nodes. Checker nodes in a distributed or a decentralized network, in our case, do a really important job, which is they check quality of service on all those worker nodes. They make sure that the work that is supposed to happen actually happens so that they can get paid. So they're part of like the process of releasing payments to the worker nodes that have provided the service. So these 2 node types do actual work on the network. They're not just owning an NFT. And you're right, like the software runs somewhere. If you're a worker node, it runs in a data center. If you're a checker node, technical requirements are much less. Like, it could probably run on a phone or Raspberry Pi pretty easily. Yeah, but it does important work. It's you can't just have it run and do nothing. So you either have to have the device where you could run it, or you could use network like Node as a service platforms to run it for you. But it runs, and you are getting paid again for doing the service on the network, not just for holding a license or an NFT. And I think a lot of people just need to get a lot more savvy about that just because something is called a node doesn't mean it's a node in the sense of what DePIN means by a node.
Yeah. Another thing that I would say is it's a quick one. If the project has node or DePIN in the name, just be careful.
Interesting. Yeah, because their focus is SEO strategy.
Yeah, come on. Yes.
Yep. Well, so your website, which very much has DePIN in the name for good reason, I think.
Yes, I mean we're not selling anything though.
Of yours, one of the services that DePIN Hub is trying to do is some amount of vetting of projects too, right? Like we ourselves did that several months back when we started talking about our DePIN plans. You have their verification program. When you verify a project, what do you look at?
Yeah. So like right now on DePIN Hub, we have around, I think, 188 projects. There was more projects, some died and we took out. We tried our best to do like a proper due diligence on those projects, to the point that DePIN Hub right now, when it started, the name of the project was DePIN DD. I started like a DePIN due diligence platform. I spend a lot of my time actually talking to founders, trying to understand what they're building, trying to make sure that what they're doing is actually real, right? Of course, we cannot be 100% like sure all the time, but we do our best work to try to do that. And the verification process, actually, the second level of things that we decided to do is that we don't have the bandwidth to do the level of due diligence that we do as a verified project. We do like the on project, all the projects. There's no project listed on this website that I didn't talk to the founders. So having 200 founders that I already spoke with. But then we build actually a framework to really go deep in the project, understand how valuable the project is, how real, if it has traction, it has like business case, etc. And that's when we really decided to build a verification program. And that's one that we did with Beamable. It's not an easy form. We send a massive form of information that the projects need to fill out, and it's blocks and blocks and blocks of text that we expect from those projects. And then when those projects pass the verification process, we're very, very confident to really push them. Like, okay, this project passed the verification. It's a really cool project. They're building serious business model. So let's try to put a lot of spotlight on them and try to promote them. And then Beamable was definitely one that passed. It was a really fun, DD process to do. We go through understanding the market, understanding why disruptive DePIN is in this market. For example, Beamable in the gaming industry. It's a lot of work, but I think it pays off for us as well. Personally, I think I get very excited when I work on these verification projects and the project passes, and it gives us a lot of confidence on working with those projects, right? Because like I said, we try to be not the gatekeepers, but DePIN Hub, most of the projects that are listed here, there's a lot of projects that are not listed on DePIN Hub that ask to be there. We don't take money to add projects to the listing. For like podcasts, we don't get paid for the podcast, for example. We try to be as transparent as possible.
Which is not the norm. It's just for people who are not on the business side of crypto.
You're leaving a lot of money on the table there. You could, you're leaving a lot of money.
But I can sleep well at night, man. That for me, that's my priority. Like, I've been in crypto for so long, and I saw so many shenanigans happening all over the place. It's like there was a podcast, I don't remember who was that we were talking about. Like, man, if I just did this amount of crime, I could have so much money. But I but I don't. I
think that's how crime always begins. Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, man, it's too easy. And
just 3% crime, just a little 3% crime, just
3%, exactly. So no, fuck that. I don't think I could do that. There's other ways to make money, and being able to sleep at night is something that is very important to me. And also, we've been building Hotspotty and DePIN Hub for so long that I can't tint the image of the company that we built. We built a company that we're very proud over the name. People know Hotspotty. People know that we've been going to conferences, trying to help the space, try to make the space something real. And it's part of our job and duty to do our best to try to clear good projects. There's a lot of projects that sometimes they're listed on DePIN Hub and do something shady, we take them off, right? So it's a big space. Some projects start well, then they can get derailed as well. And those are the things that usually with the verification program that we do, like we haven't had any issue yet on that. So it's cool.
So that's another resource for folks here who are just trying to learn about DePIN. And I would say you still have to do some of your own investigation, just as we talked about earlier, but maybe that's a good filter to apply to projects first to even determine which ones you want it. Because you could spend a lot of time looking at things that are not for real, frankly, and at least knowing that there's some substance behind them is a good first step before you dig into the details behind it for yourself. So we're getting to the point in the program where I have to give out a code, because we are doing we're doing a TG. We're on that whole TGE train, and the train is getting a lot closer to the station where we're going to get off for the next part of our journey, by the way, which is like TGE is not an endpoint for Beamable. We've been at this 5 years and certainly have, for me personally, like probably a lot more than 5 years left to do all the things that I want to accomplish with this. So the TGE is a nice stop along the way, but a lot of folks are here excited about that. You're working on the leaderboards. You are helping to amplify our message. Really thankful to everybody in the community. We've got an incredible community of 1.2 million monthly active users, and you guys have done some amazing things. Not only amplified our message, but we discovered that you can even help promote the games on our platform. So I'll tell you, we're working on some thinking around how we make that be a perpetual part of what we're doing. There's some way that we can get game studios to take in a bunch of Beamable token and say, hey, there's a prize pool to reward the Beamable hub community with, here's some tokens to go and install our game, try it out, get your friends to give it a try. So we want to keep building applications on top of the DePIN. It's not going to end with just like the server provisioning layer. It's all the things you can do on top of it, from software modules, third-party developers develop, to user acquisition, all of that stuff. And it's always going to be an open protocol with Beamable. So anybody could build this. So like the user acquisition thing I just said, for example, like that doesn't have to be a Beamable quote unquote service. Like we would invite anybody to build a service like that on top of the protocol and work with our community. So that said, I got to give the code out. And can anyone guess what the code is today? It's highly appropriate to this subject. The code is DePIN, DEPIN. So if you go to our Discord and type /claim DePIN, that's how you earn your reward today. So go check it out. Again, DePIN, DEPIN. It's on the screen right there. Go claim your reward and climb that leaderboard. And thanks again for being part of this. Okay, so Huckleberry has a question about Hotspotty. So first, I'm going to treat this as a kind of a two-part question, because it sounds like Huckleberry is pretty familiar with Hotspotty already. But take a moment, Daniel, to tell everyone about, like, what are you solving? Like, there's this Hotspotty mobile app. What does it do? Why do people need it? And then I think he's basically saying, what's the roadmap for this? What are you excited about next?
Yes, it's just a very quick answer. The Hotspotty Connect app was part of when Helium changed for the way that they onboard devices. You needed to have third-party manufacturer to have their own app. And instead of people having 50 apps for each of the hotspot manufacturer they're working on, we decided to build one app to rule them all. But then after Helium decided to move back into having their own app to onboard devices, we just decided to take Hotspotty Connect out. So if you have it on your phone, you can, it still works. You can still like look at your hotspots and everything. But if you uninstall it, you won't be able to install it back, because we decided to discontinue that, because there was no point in keeping all the functionalities that we did is run out now on the Helium mobile app. So there's the short answer. Yeah.
So there you go, Huckleberry. We're at the end. But thanks for the support of it. So Suman makes a comment here. DePIN projects should come together and teach the world to introduce courses. So first of all, I think the theme here is educational, but there's an opportunity for DePIN to work with each other as well, right? So in Web3, we have this idea of composability. Composability is essentially building stuff from other stuff. It's kind of the oldest thing that exists. I wrote this blog post 2 or 3 years back that is the most powerful creative force in the universe, because basically composability is how life works, how everything works. The thing that sort of maybe the more unique element of what it means with respect to Web3 versus traditional, say, open source software development, which has nothing to do with blockchain. You could pull a component in open source, build your code with it, is the idea that you've also got the public blockchain for any financial or value exchange pieces. So the pieces of software not only build on top of each other, they build on top of a common set of data for financial transactions, which lets them essentially provide things like payment services or shared value and smart contracts all around a shared set of functionality. I'm curious what you're seeing, Daniel, in terms of DePIN starting to leverage more composability in their applications.
Yeah, I know. I'll talk about this, and then I just want to show that we have the Helium, a DePIN Academy on DePIN Hub as well. No, composability is one of the most important things I see on crypto in general, and DePIN particularly, right? Like, is it okay? When you're building one project, you can leverage other DePINs to build their own project. If you think about the way that Demo had a Helium hotspot version of their devices, there's this. All the projects utilizing other projects and helping to grow this network together. I think composability is one of the best things around DePIN, and how all the founders know each other and they can help each other. Like, for example, you can use decentralized infrastructure, decentralized storage for something. You can host your servers on a decentralized network. You can everything almost that you need to do today. You don't necessarily even need to touch the big companies, and that's something that's very, very exciting for me. And that's only because you can build a company that relies on other projects that are trying to do the same thing and helping each other.
Yeah, well, definitely bring up the educational DePIN Academy stuff that you've got. While you're bringing it up on screen, I'll just say there's a lot of compute networks out there, or there's a growing number of compute networks, and they all have kind of different approaches to this. Like there's Fluence, for example, that is more like data center grade capacity. And then at the opposite side, you've got like someone like Accurast, who's building a compute network, but from phones. Why? It's really interesting thesis. Phones basically have, according to them, and I think it sounds right, they have the best current security architecture in them. So if you want a network that actually is a trusted computing environment, you can actually do it with mobile phones. These are phones running in data centers. So it's just kind of interesting. They're not phones like you're not carrying it around in your pocket, serving up like compute applications. They're phones deployed in a data center in a rack where they're used for their trusted computing environment. So really interesting. And the point of this is there's all these different compute networks. For us, the important part of the compute network isn't us like having our fingertips on every piece of iron in the network running the hardware. It's that we have a lot of verticalized specialization around the needs of the gaming industry. There's a rich software layer. There's things like the community hub, which will be driving more user acquisition things in the future. So that's our kind of value add. But we can aggregate compute from other DePIN projects that meet the technical requirements, which I think is sort of unique to us. Like I don't know that Amazon sources capacity from Google or vice versa, for example. So you're showing DePIN Hub. Why don't you tell people about this? Because it's coming right up on the hour, and the hour has
Yeah, exactly. One thing that we build is we call DePIN Hub Academy. So we have right now 3 courses, and we're adding more. One thing that we did last year called DePIN Revolution, where we got 40 different projects, 40 different founders to talk about their projects and get people excited and involved. With a total of 22 hours. It was a 3-day event that we had online. We got I think thousands of users all around the world, and we combine everything into a free course. All you need to do is join DePIN Hub. You need to sign in, and then you can join. We have 1,000 people that are already enrolled this course that you can learn all about all the different projects. Have all this. There's some investors. There's projects. That was a really, really exciting thing that we built. and something that we're thinking about still doing again, because there's every month people ask about, okay, can we guys do a DePIN Revolution 2? Because it was so much fun. It was a lot of work to build that. But you can already see everything that we build is on DePIN Hub. If you go to Academy, there's like course about introduction to DePIN that we build as well. So if you're curious about this, there's a lot of courses, there's a lot of things that you can do here. And another thing that not necessarily linked to the Academy that I would like to say, something that we released today, and it's still like a little bit of work in progress. If you go to deepinhub.io/projects, we built this massive table that have all the DePIN projects that are interested, all the DePIN projects that are listed on the platform. Of course, Beamable is number one. There's like, we decided, we discovered there's a little bug on the Discord number because we're pointing to the old one. But it's really interesting because, you know, in one page, you can have the glance for like almost 200 projects. You can see what's the project with the biggest like market cap, for example, trading volume, price token, Discord. You can see if their Twitter's growing, Discord's growing. Also, you can see, you know, all the podcasts that we've done here. So, for example, like we're talking about Fluence, you can click here. You're going to go to the podcast episode of Fluence. There's so many things that we've been building. Okay, I want to talk about I want to watch the podcast of Weather Exam. You can see here the interview that I did. Mm-hmm. So basically one page that you can see everything that's happening around DePIN. And we are, of course, adding new projects every day and getting more projects involved. And it's just one thing that we're trying to do to improve the website. I'm always happy to hear feedback from the community in ways to improve it.
All right. Well, you heard it. That's a perfect.
And drop the mic
for this stream. Go to DePIN Hub, sign up, register your account, look at the educational materials. There's probably a ton there that you'll learn super quickly. We covered some of it here, but you're going to get into a way more depth than we can cover in a 1 hour stream. I highly recommend DePIN Hub. Get on there. And hey, while you're on there, Beamable is the #1 most favorited project on DePIN Hub today. But we are not resting on our laurels. We don't mind if you star us there. We would happily accept a few more points at even where we are on the top of the leaderboard. So head on over there, follow us, star us. We love all of you in the community, and I hope this was a super informative. In fact, I know it was a super informative live stream for you, and you will share this with your friends and tell them that if they love this, come on to the next Decentralized Tech live stream, where every week I talk with people like Daniel who are on this space, or like Amir, who's the CEO of Helium, or the exec team over at Aether. Like, that's the kind of guests I have on this stream. Would love you to be there next time live and to watch replays if the time isn't convenient for you. That's it for today. Daniel, thank you so much for being part of this. A really fun stream that the hour and 3 minutes, we went over a little bit, but it just flew on by. We could have talked for a few hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me. It was really a lot of fun. And I hope to see you in person in Korea or Singapore or around the world in the next conference, man.
I'll be at both. All right. Until next time, everybody. Thanks.